転生
What if Naruto and Ophis stand at the pinnacle of power movie? Disclaimer. I do not own the rights to Naruto, Ophis, or any other characters referenced in this story. Naruto is the intellectual property of Masashi Kishimoto, and Ophis is from the High School DxD series, created by Ikie Ishibumi. Chapter 1. The wild card enters the game. The supernatural world had long been divided into three dominant factions: devils, angels, and fallen angels, each vying for power in a delicate balance. However, none of them could have predicted the arrival of a force unlike anything they had ever encountered. A force that neither belonged to their system nor obeyed their rules. A man clad in orange and black, with golden hair that defied the night and eyes that burned with an untamed fire, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto had no idea how he had ended up in this world. One moment, he had been in his own, fighting against an otherworldly enemy, and the next, he had awoken in a realm filled with creatures who wielded powers he didn't recognize. The laws of this world were different. There were devils who thrived in darkness, angels who preached order, and fallen angels who walked a line between both. But none of them had ever seen chakra, nor could they comprehend the sheer force of nature that Naruto represented. For weeks, Naruto had wandered, searching for answers, only to come across the one being in this world who didn't look at him with fear, curiosity, or suspicion: Ophis, the infinite dragon god. The moment they met, she had simply tilted her head and asked, "Are you strong?" Naruto had grinned. "Stronger than you think." From that moment, an odd bond had formed between them. Ophis, drawn to Naruto's limitless energy and unpredictability, had taken a liking to him. For the first time in her endless existence, she found someone who was not bound by the politics of this world, someone who walked his own path. And Naruto, seeing the loneliness in her eyes, found himself drawn to her in turn. She reminded him of himself, someone searching for something more. It wasn't long before the factions took notice. A mysterious warrior moving through their territories, unaligned and unrestricted. That was a problem. A threat. Yet, despite their attempts to gauge his allegiance, Naruto remained elusive. He did not bow to devils, obey angels, or fear the fallen. He was a force that existed outside their control. A wild card. That was how he found himself standing in Kuo Academy, watching a fight unfold between a group of devils and a fallen angel. It didn't take a genius to realize who was losing. The boy, Issei Hyodo, was being torn apart by his opponent. A girl with dark wings and a sadistic smirk, enjoying the cruelty of her attacks. Naruto's hands clenched into fists. He wasn't one to stand by while someone got beaten to death, especially when that someone reminded him of himself in his weaker days. Before the fallen angel could land the final blow, Naruto moved. A flicker of golden light, and he was between them. The fallen angel barely had time to react before a fist buried itself into her gut, sending her flying into a nearby tree with a deafening crash. The devils, who had been watching in horror, turned their gazes to him. "Who are you?" Rias Grimori asked, her crimson hair flowing in the night breeze. Naruto turned his head slightly, offering a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just a guy who doesn't like bullies." The battle ended before it could even begin. The fallen angel, recognizing a foe beyond her understanding, retreated with a snarl, leaving behind a confused and barely conscious Issei. Rias and her peerage, still wary of Naruto, approached him cautiously. He could see the calculations in their eyes, trying to figure out if he was friend or foe. Akano, the dark-haired beauty with an electrifying presence, stepped forward first. That was quite the display. "You're not an ordinary human, are you?" Naruto shrugged. "Never said I was." Hiba, the blonde swordsman, narrowed his eyes. "You're strong. Stronger than most we've seen. Are you a stray?" That word. Naruto didn't like the way they threw it around. Like he was some kind of lost dog. He crossed his arms, his expression turning serious. "I don't belong to any of your little groups. I walk my own path." That answer didn't seem to satisfy them, but before they could press further, Ophis appeared beside him as if she had always been there. The moment she did, the entire atmosphere shifted. Tension thickened, fear flickered in their eyes. Rias took a step back, her fingers twitching as if ready to summon her power. "Ophis," she whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. "The infinite dragon god." Ophis, however, paid them no mind. She simply reached out, touching Naruto's sleeve, as if ensuring he was still there. I was looking for you. Naruto relaxed instantly. Sorry, got a little sidetracked. He glanced at Rias and her group, then back at Ophis. These guys weren't giving me any trouble, just asking too many questions. Rias' gaze darted between them, her mind racing. What was the infinite dragon god doing with this mysterious warrior? What was their connection? This wasn't just a chance meeting. Ophis wasn't the type to form attachments. Yet, here she was, standing beside Naruto as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I see, Ophis said simply, then turned to Rias. He is not your enemy. Not yet. Not yet. Those words sent a chill through them. Naruto sighed, rubbing the back of his head. You make it sound like I'm gonna start a war or something. Ophis tilted her head. Will you? He grinned. Not unless someone gives me a reason to. Rias exhaled slowly. She had no idea who or what Naruto was, but one thing was certain, he was dangerous. More dangerous than anything she had encountered before. And yet, he didn't seem to have any interest in the ongoing conflict between the factions. That was the problem. Because an unpredictable force was far more terrifying than an enemy you could understand. As Naruto and Ophis turned to leave, Rias made a decision. She couldn't afford to let him slip away just yet. Wait. Naruto glanced back. If you truly walk your own path, then why not stay a while? Rias offered, her crimson eyes sharp. You've already stepped into this world. Might as well see where it leads. Naruto considered her words before smirking. We'll see, princess. And with that, he vanished into the night, leaving behind a devil heiress who knew that her world had just been turned upside down. Chapter 2. The balance is shaken. The night air was crisp as Naruto and Ophis moved through Kuo town. Despite the tense encounter with Rias and her peerage, Naruto couldn't help but feel that this world was going to be more troublesome than he expected. He could already tell he had been dragged into a situation filled with politics, power struggles, and ancient rivalries, none of which interested him. Ophis walked beside him in her usual calm manner, her expression unreadable. You interfere. Naruto glanced at her. With what? With the flow. The battle that was meant to happen was altered by your presence. Naruto smirked. I've never been good at sitting back and watching. Ophis tilted her head. You do not belong to this world, yet you move like you are part of it. He stopped, shoving his hands into his pockets. I don't know why I'm here, Ophis. But I do know one thing. I'm not the kind of guy who just ignores things when I see someone in trouble. Ophis studied him for a moment before nodding. That is why you are different. Their conversation was interrupted when a sudden surge of energy erupted nearby. Naruto's instincts flared, his body moving on its own as he leapt onto a rooftop, scanning the area. What he saw made him frown. A group of fallen angels surrounded a young girl with white hair, her body bruised, her eyes wide with fear. Another kid getting picked on. Naruto muttered, already moving before he could think. The fallen angels barely had time to react before he crashed into their midst. With a single, well-placed Rasengan, one of them was sent spiraling into the ground, unconscious before he could even cry out. The others recoiled in shock. Who the hell? One of them started, but Naruto wasn't interested in talking. He appeared behind another with a flicker of speed, slamming an elbow into the back of his skull. The remaining two hesitated, their wings twitching, before choosing the better part of valor and fleeing. Naruto crouched beside the girl, offering her a hand. Hey, you okay? The girl looked at him hesitantly before nodding. I think so. Before Naruto could ask more, he felt another presence approaching. Turning, he saw Rias and her peerage arrive, their expressions mixed with relief and wariness. That girl, Rias' voice was soft, her eyes focused on the white-haired girl. She's one of us. Naruto glanced between them before sighing. Guess I just saved another one of your people, huh? Rias nodded, her eyes filled with calculation. Yes, and that makes me even more interested in who you are. Chapter 3. An invitation into the Devil's Den. Rias had made her decision. This man, this enigma, was someone she needed to keep an eye on. Whether he was a threat or an ally was yet to be seen, but one thing was certain, he wasn't someone she could afford to ignore. Come with us, she said. Naruto raised a brow. And why would I do that? Because whether you like it or not, you're involved now. Naruto chuckled. Involved? Huh, I don't like being told what to do, princess. Rias smiled slightly. It's not an order. It's an offer. If you're going to keep interfering, you might as well know what you're dealing with. Naruto glanced at Ophis, who remained silent but seemed curious. He sighed. Fine. Lead the way. Arriving at the Grimoire mansion, Naruto was met with a mixture of curiosity and tension. Akeno studied him with amusement, Kiba with caution, and Kaneko with silent wariness. Issei, still processing everything, simply gawked at him. Rias sat on her throne-like chair and steepled her fingers. So, tell me, Naruto. What exactly are you? Naruto smirked. Now that's a complicated question. Chapter 4. The power that defies logic. Explaining chakra to people who had never encountered it was a pain. Naruto gave a brief rundown, but the reactions were as expected, confusion mixed with disbelief. So, you don't use demonic power, angelic power, or sacred gears? Akeno asked, her tone intrigued. Nope, Naruto replied. I use something entirely different. Rias frowned. And yet, you're stronger than most of us. Naruto grinned. I've been through a lot. Before the conversation could continue, a sudden surge of energy filled the room. The ground trembled slightly, and all eyes turned toward Ophis. She had been quiet the entire time, but now, she radiated a pressure that made even Rias tense. He is mine, Ophis said simply. Silence fell over the room. Rias cleared her throat. What do you mean by that? Ophis looked at Naruto. You belong to me. Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. You make it sound weird when you say it like that. Rias exhaled. This was getting more complicated by the second. Chapter 5. The Gathering Storm. The meeting ended without clear answers, but one thing was certain, Naruto wasn't going anywhere. Rias had made it clear that she wanted him close, and Ophis had made it clear that he wasn't to be touched. It was an unusual dynamic, one that left everyone on edge. That night, as Naruto stood on the balcony, staring at the stars, Ophis joined him. You change things, she said. Naruto smirked. That's what I do. She stepped closer, her hand brushing against his. I like it. Naruto turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. You're not so bad yourself. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Ophis did something unexpected. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Naruto blinked but didn't move away. Instead, he simply smiled. The supernatural world was shifting. The balance was breaking. And Naruto Uzumaki, the wild card, was at the center of it all. Chapter 6. The Factions Stir. The morning light filtered through the large windows of the Grimoire mansion, casting long shadows across the elegant hallway. Naruto sat on a balcony, looking out over Kuo town, his mind racing with thoughts of the strange new world he found himself in. Ophis stood beside him, silent as usual. She didn't need to speak. Her presence was enough. There was something undeniably comforting about the way she simply existed beside him. In a world where everyone else seemed to be calculating their next move, Ophis remained an enigma. Are you thinking about leaving? She asked, her voice breaking the stillness. Naruto shook his head. Nah, not yet. I'm not one to run from a fight, especially when I don't know what the fight's about. The door to the mansion creaked open, and Rias, followed by her peerage, stepped out. The atmosphere shifted immediately, their arrival marking the beginning of another day full of tension. Issei, still trying to process everything that had happened so far, walked with a confused expression. Kiba, as usual, seemed on edge, though he was clearly trying to mask it. Akeno, ever the curious one, was watching Naruto with interest, while Kaneko remained as stoic as ever. We need to talk, Rias said as she approached, her voice calm but firm. Naruto turned to face her. About what? About you, she replied, her crimson eyes locked onto his. You've been here for a while now, and we need to understand where you stand. You're not like any of us. You don't belong to the devil faction, and you don't seem to have any interest in the other factions. But you're powerful, and you've already made enemies. Naruto chuckled. I don't like being controlled. Never have, never will. If someone wants to make me their enemy, then that's their problem, not mine. Rias narrowed her eyes. That's the issue. You're too unpredictable. And right now, the balance of power in this world is fragile. If you're going to stay, we need to know where you stand. If you continue to move like this, things could spiral out of control. Ophis stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. He does not care for balance. Naruto smiled at her, amused. I'm not here to tip the scales or start a war. But if someone comes after me or my people, I won't just stand by and watch. There was a pause as everyone took in his words. Rias, still calculating, spoke again. So you don't care about the politics, but you do care about your allies. Naruto shrugged. I guess you could say that. I don't care for factions or politics, but I'll fight for those I care about. Ophis, standing at his side, remained silent, her gaze fixed ahead. She didn't need to say anything, her presence alone conveyed the message. She was with him, and that was enough for Naruto. Rias and her peerage exchanged looks, weighing his words. It was clear that they didn't fully trust him yet, but there was something in his demeanor, something raw and unyielding, that gave them pause. Fine, Rias finally said. But know this. We can't protect you from everything. If you become a target, you'll have to fight your own battles. Naruto smiled, a dangerous glint in his eyes. I wouldn't have it any other way. Chapter 7. A new threat emerges. As the days passed, tensions in the supernatural world began to rise. Naruto and Ophis kept to themselves, spending most of their time training or exploring the boundaries of their new lives. However, it wasn't long before their presence began to attract the attention of others. One evening, as Naruto and Ophis were walking through a secluded park, they sensed it, a powerful energy signature approaching. The hairs on the back of Naruto's neck stood on end as he turned to face the source. A figure appeared out of the shadows, his dark wings spread wide. His red eyes glowed ominously as he surveyed the pair before him. Well, the figure said with a smirk. It's been a while since I've encountered someone like you. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Who the hell are you? The figure chuckled. I'm Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels. And I've been hearing rumors about you, Naruto Uzumaki. A man with the power to shake the balance of this world. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You've been hearing rumors, huh? Well, maybe you've got the wrong idea. I'm not interested in any of your faction games. Azazel's grin widened. That's the thing. You're not part of any faction. And that makes you dangerous. Ophis, ever the observer, stood beside Naruto, her eyes fixed on Azazel. You should leave. He does not like being threatened. Azazel raised an eyebrow at her words but didn't retreat. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to offer you something. Naruto crossed his arms. And what would that be? A place in the Fallen Angel faction, Azazel replied smoothly. We could use someone like you. Someone with your strength and unpredictability. Naruto snorted. I don't bow to anyone. You've got the wrong guy. Azazel's smile faltered, but only slightly. That's unfortunate. I was hoping you'd be more cooperative. I told you, I don't play those games. Naruto's voice hardened, his eyes flashing with determination. You want to talk about power? Fine. But don't expect me to join your side just because you offer me a position. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Azazel's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Naruto cracked his knuckles. I don't think so. With that, the air around them shifted, the tension palpable. Azazel didn't move to attack immediately, but Naruto could tell that the fallen angel was sizing him up. Ophis, meanwhile, was already preparing for whatever would come next. Let's make this quick, Naruto muttered as he stepped forward. Azazel raised a hand, and suddenly, dark energy surged from his body. The ground beneath them cracked as the pressure of the power was released. Fine, Azazel said. Let's see what you've got. Chapter 8. The battle that shakes the earth. The battle erupted with blinding speed. Azazel launched the first attack, sending a wave of black energy towards Naruto. But Naruto was already moving, his body blurring as he dodged the attack effortlessly. His reflexes were beyond anything Azazel had encountered. With a burst of chakra, Naruto closed the distance, appearing before Azazel in an instant. He raised his fist, but Azazel managed to block it with a barrier of dark energy. The impact sent shockwaves through the area, but the fallen angel remained unharmed. You're faster than I expected, Azazel admitted, his eyes glinting with interest. Naruto grinned. You have no idea what I can do. With a roar, he unleashed a Rasengan, the spiraling orb of energy crashing into Azazel's barrier with enough force to shatter it. Azazel staggered back, momentarily caught off guard by the power behind the attack. Ophis, watching from the sidelines, narrowed her eyes. Impressive. Azazel sneered, brushing off the remnants of the attack. You're strong, but strength alone won't win this fight. He flapped his wings, rising into the air with inhuman speed. From above, he launched a barrage of dark energy blasts, each one aimed directly at Naruto. The explosions rocked the ground as Naruto nimbly evaded them, moving with the grace of a seasoned warrior. Not bad, Naruto said, his grin widening. But you're gonna need more than that. Azazel sneered, his eyes glowing red. Very well. Let's see if you can handle this. With a snap of his fingers, the ground beneath Naruto cracked open, revealing a massive serpent made of dark energy. The creature hissed and lunged at him, its fangs gleaming with deadly intent. Naruto grinned, feeling the rush of excitement in his veins. Come on, then, he yelled, charging forward. Chapter 9. A Deal with the Devil. The battle raged on, Naruto fighting with everything he had. Azazel's power was formidable, but Naruto's determination and sheer strength were unmatched. Each clash between them sent tremors through the earth, their energies colliding in a spectacle of destruction. But despite the chaos, one thing was clear: Azazel wasn't giving up. He was relentless, using every trick in his arsenal to try and subdue Naruto. Yet, no matter what Azazel threw at him, Naruto adapted, countering each move with a confidence that was almost maddening. Finally, with a powerful thrust, Naruto unleashed his most devastating move, a Rasengan infused with a layer of Sage Mode energy. The blast tore through Azazel's defenses, sending the fallen angel crashing to the ground, defeated but not broken. You're strong, Azazel gasped, struggling to rise. Stronger than I thought. Naruto stood over him, his expression unwavering. I told you, I don't lose. Azazel's eyes flickered with a mix of respect and wariness. You've proven your point, Naruto Uzumaki. But remember this: there are forces in this world that even you can't fight alone. Naruto smirked. I don't fight alone. Ophis appeared by his side, her presence radiating an undeniable power. Azazel's eyes widened in realization. Then consider this a warning, Azazel said, his voice grim. You've made a dangerous enemy today. With that, Azazel disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease. Naruto turned to Ophis, a grin on his face. Well, that was fun. Ophis, ever calm, simply nodded. You are strong. Naruto smiled. You're not so bad yourself. And so, as the battle ended and the dust settled, the world of devils, angels, and fallen angels was once again thrown into disarray. But this time, it wasn't by the machinations of politics or ancient rivalries. It was by the arrival of a force that no one could control. Chapter 10. The Reckoning of Factions. The events of the past few days sent ripples through the supernatural world. Azazel's cryptic words lingered in Naruto's mind, though he chose to ignore them for the moment. He had more pressing matters to focus on, like making sure that Ophis was safe and trying to figure out just what he was doing here in the first place. Despite the battle with Azazel, life at the Grimoire mansion returned to a semblance of normalcy. Rias and her peerage had all but accepted Naruto's presence, though there was still an air of suspicion lingering around him. They were intrigued by him, drawn to the raw power he exhibited, but there was still the matter of the unknown: what was his true goal? Rias had made it clear that Naruto's freedom was both a privilege and a potential threat to the delicate balance of the supernatural world. She had offered her alliance, though it was clear that she, like the others, was hesitant to fully trust him. Naruto, for his part, remained indifferent. He didn't need alliances to survive. He had Ophis at his side, and that was enough. Issei, come on, don't just stand there like a zombie, Rias said one afternoon as she looked over her peerage's members. Issei blinked, startled. What? Rias gave him a playful smile, but there was something sharp beneath it. I think you're the only one not acknowledging Naruto's strength. Don't you think he deserves more respect? Issei rubbed the back of his head, a nervous laugh escaping him. Oh, right, Naruto-kun. I mean, you really are amazing with all that crazy chakra stuff. Naruto chuckled, sitting back in his chair with an easy grin. I don't need respect, Issei. Just don't get in my way when it matters. The words were casual, but they carried weight. The atmosphere shifted as the group realized the kind of man Naruto truly was. He wasn't someone who played by anyone's rules. Rias, ever the strategist, leaned forward. Still, you've caught the attention of not just the fallen angels but also other factions. There are those who will try to control you or eliminate you, whether you want it or not. Naruto looked at her seriously for the first time in days. Let them try. I've faced worse. Ophis, who had been sitting quietly by his side, spoke for the first time in a while. They will come for you. The next move is theirs. Rias frowned. You're right. There's no way we can stay under the radar now. And as if on cue, a messenger from the Grigori arrived that evening with a sealed letter from Azazel. It was a direct challenge, one that promised a fight to prove who truly controlled the supernatural world. Chapter 11. The Unseen Hand. The night was silent, save for the distant hum of city life. The Grimoire mansion, nestled in its secluded spot on the outskirts of Kuo, was far from peaceful now. A new, invisible war was about to unfold, a war that would have consequences for every faction involved. Naruto stood on the balcony, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Beside him, Ophis stood, as calm and unreadable as ever. Despite everything that had happened, she was still his closest ally, and something about her made Naruto feel anchored in a world that otherwise seemed out of place. Do you ever think about what happens next? Naruto asked her, his voice low. Ophis tilted her head slightly. What happens next? After all the dust settles. After the fights and the politics, what do we do? Ophis didn't immediately respond, her gaze distant. We will be here. Together. Naruto looked at her, a faint smile crossing his face. Yeah, I guess we will. Just then, Rias entered the room, a serious expression on her face. Naruto, Ophis, Azazel has made his move. The fallen angels have started a series of attacks on neutral territories, all of them indirectly tied to you. Naruto frowned, but his expression remained unreadable. I knew it. They can't leave me alone, huh? Not just Azazel, Rias continued. The angels and devils are starting to notice you too. They're all aware of your power now, and that makes you a target. Naruto exhaled, stretching his arms. I've dealt with bigger targets. I can handle it. Rias bit her lip, looking concerned. I'm not sure you understand the scale of this, Naruto. This isn't just about you anymore. Every faction in the supernatural world has its eye on you. There will be assassins, spies, and much worse. It's only a matter of time before they all come for you directly. Naruto nodded slowly. Then I'll be ready. Ophis, her gaze cold, stepped closer to Naruto, her hand brushing against his. We will be ready. Chapter 12. The First Strike. The first strike came under the cover of night. The sounds of battle echoed through the mansion grounds as the enemy made their presence known. It was a group of fallen angels, their wings spread wide as they descended upon the Grimoire estate. Their eyes glowed with a fierce intent, and they had come prepared, each one armed with powerful sacred gears and cursed weapons. Naruto and Ophis were the first to respond, appearing on the battlefield with a deadly speed that left the fallen angels reeling. The first few fell before they even had time to react. Naruto's Rasengan tore through the night, sending shockwaves of force into the enemies, and his shadow clones appeared, overwhelming their ranks with sheer numbers. Stay close, Naruto said to Ophis, though she didn't need the warning. She moved like a ghost, her power flowing effortlessly through her. In an instant, she reduced several fallen angels to nothing more than ashes with a single glance. The peerage members of Rias joined the fight, though they were clearly outclassed by Naruto's sheer power. Issei attempted to charge, his sacred gear flaring, but Naruto intercepted him with ease, flicking him out of harm's way with a single, lazy hand. Not yet, kid, Naruto muttered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. You're not ready for this level of danger. Akeno and Kiba formed a protective line around the group as Rias issued orders to the others. The battle was intense, but it was clear that the enemy was no match for Naruto and Ophis's raw power. The fallen angels, realizing they were outmatched, quickly retreated, leaving behind the charred remains of their comrades. Naruto stood, surveying the battlefield with a calm expression. Is that all? He muttered. Rias approached, her face serious. That was just a warning. There's more to come. I can handle it, Naruto said without hesitation. Ophis, standing by his side, nodded. He will handle it. Chapter 13. The Fall of an Angel. The night was thick with tension as Naruto, Ophis, and the Grimoire peerage regrouped inside the mansion. The attack had been repelled, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Azazel's forces wouldn't rest until they had Naruto either under control or dead. I don't like this, Kiba muttered, cleaning his sword. They came at us with everything they had. They won't just stop here. Akeno, ever the strategist, narrowed her eyes. They're testing us. They want to see if you're a threat, Naruto. And you know I am, Naruto said with a grin, cracking his knuckles. They've learned that lesson already. Let's see what they do next. Ophis stood silently, her gaze distant as she watched the others. It wasn't her style to engage in the politics of the factions. Her role was simple: stand by Naruto and protect him, whatever it took. The tension in the air was palpable, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the next move would come. But this time, they wouldn't be caught off guard. Chapter 14. Allies and Enemies. Naruto had only been in this world for a short time, but it was already clear that he wasn't just a player in the game of devils, angels, and fallen angels. He was a wild card, a force of nature that had disrupted the balance of power. But even as the enemy gathered strength, Naruto couldn't help but find allies in unexpected places. His relationship with Rias and her peerage had become more than just a partnership of convenience. There was a growing trust between them, a bond forged in the fires of battle. It was Akeno who first approached him one evening after a tense battle. She stood beside him, her gaze thoughtful. "Naruto," she began, "do you ever think about what happens when the factions finally come for you?" Naruto didn't look at her at first. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what will you do when the peace you've found here is threatened?" She pressed. Naruto finally turned to her, his eyes calm but resolute. "I'll fight. And if I have to, I'll destroy anyone who stands in my way." Akeno studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I think I understand now." Chapter 15. The Gathering Storm. The supernatural world was on the brink of chaos. Naruto had unknowingly become the catalyst for a storm that would shake the foundations of every faction. Azazel, the angels, the devils, all were moving in the shadows, preparing for a conflict that could engulf everything. But for Naruto, it was business as usual. He had never been the type to shy away from a fight, and he wasn't going to start now. With Ophis by his side and the Grimoire peerage at his back, Naruto stood ready for whatever came next. The storm was coming, and he would be there to meet it head on. Chapter 16. The Council's Decision. The attack on Kuo had sent shockwaves through the supernatural factions. Naruto's overwhelming power had been demonstrated once again, and this time, the leaders of heaven, hell, and the fallen angels couldn't ignore it. A summit was called, a rare gathering of the leaders of all three factions. Rias, as a high-ranking devil and Grimoire heiress, was summoned to attend. Surprisingly, Naruto received an invitation as well. "They see you as a problem now," Rias told him as they prepared to leave for the meeting. Naruto smirked. "They've got good instincts." Ophis, sitting beside him, tilted her head. "Do you plan to fight them?" "Only if they give me a reason," Naruto replied. "I'm not interested in their power struggles." But deep down, he knew this was the moment that would define his role in this world. The factions had finally acknowledged him, and now they had to decide: would he be an ally, a threat, or something else entirely? Chapter 17. The Gathering of Titans. The meeting took place in a grand hall in the underworld. The tension in the air was suffocating. Seraphal Leviathan, Searsex Lucifer, Michael, and Azazel all sat at a massive table, their expressions neutral but watchful. Naruto, Ophis at his side, strode into the room with his usual carefree demeanor. His presence alone caused a ripple through the gathering. Azazel smirked. Well, the man of the hour finally arrives. Michael, ever the peacemaker, observed Naruto carefully. "You've disrupted the balance, Naruto Uzumaki. We must understand your intentions." Searsex leaned forward, his red eyes glowing. "You don't serve the devils. You don't serve heaven. And you certainly don't serve the Grigori. So tell us, what do you want?" Naruto looked around at the powerful figures in the room. He could feel their cautious curiosity, their barely restrained fear. And he smiled. "I want to live my life. But if any of you come after me or Ophis, I'll tear your factions apart." The room went dead silent. Ophis, standing beside him, nodded as if his words were law. Seraphal broke the silence with a chuckle. "I like him." Chapter 18. Declaring Independence. Despite the tense meeting, no immediate war broke out. The factions agreed that Naruto was too unpredictable to challenge directly. Instead, they opted for a wait-and-see approach. Naruto, meanwhile, had no interest in their games. He declared himself independent of any faction, making it clear that he would act on his own terms. "I'm not a devil, an angel, or a fallen," he told Rias when they returned to Kuo. "I'm just Naruto." Rias sighed, both relieved and frustrated. "That makes you a wildcard. That makes me free." Ophis, resting against him, nodded in agreement. We are free. But they all knew that freedom came with a price. The factions wouldn't stay neutral forever. Chapter 19. A Dangerous Alliance. Naruto's declaration of independence made him a target for recruitment. Various groups sought him out, hoping to sway him to their cause. The Chaos Brigade was one of them. Naruto met their leader, Valley Lucifer, for the first time in an abandoned temple. Valley, the White Dragon Emperor, grinned as he examined Naruto. I can see why they're afraid of you, Valley said. You're not bound by the rules of this world. Naruto folded his arms. And that makes you valuable. Join me, and we'll tear down the old order together. Naruto smirked. Not interested. Valley's grin widened. Good. I wouldn't respect you if you had said yes so easily. It wasn't the last time they would meet. Chapter 20. Ophis' Heart. As time passed, Ophis and Naruto's bond deepened. She was no longer just the infinite dragon god, she was his Ophis. One evening, as they sat under the moonlight, Ophis asked him, "Do you miss your old world?" Naruto was silent for a long moment before shaking his head. Not really. That world had its own problems, and I had already fought my final battles there. Ophis looked at him, something unreadable in her gaze. Do you regret coming here? He turned to her, brushing a strand of her hair behind her ear. Not if it means being with you. For the first time, Ophis smiled. A small, genuine smile. Chapter 21. The Invasion of Kuo. Peace never lasted long. A rogue faction of the Chaos Brigade attacked Kuo, seeking to make a statement by taking out Rias and her peerage. They didn't count on Naruto. The battle was swift and brutal. Naruto tore through their ranks with Rasengans and shadow clones, his movements a blur of destruction. Ophis unleashed her draconic power, reducing entire sections of the battlefield to rubble. By the time the dust settled, the enemy had been annihilated. Naruto stood amidst the wreckage, his expression unreadable. If this is how it's going to be, then I'll have to make an example out of someone. The world needed to learn not to mess with him. Chapter 22. The Return of an Old Enemy. Naruto's overwhelming victories attracted an even deadlier foe, Rizvam Levon Lucifer, one of the strongest devils and a leader of the Chaos Brigade. He appeared before Naruto and Ophis, grinning. So you're the legendary Naruto Uzumaki. I must say, you're living up to the hype. Naruto narrowed his eyes. You want a fight? Rizvam chuckled. Oh no, not yet. But I do love breaking things, and you, my friend, are something that needs to be broken. It was a declaration of war. Chapter 23. The Rise of the Uzumaki Clan. Naruto realized that fighting alone wouldn't be enough. He needed allies. His own faction. He began recruiting warriors, gathering those who had been cast aside by the factions. In time, he built something new, the Uzumaki clan, a group bound not by race or faction, but by strength and loyalty. Ophis stood at his side, the co-founder of their new power. The supernatural world took notice. Naruto wasn't just a wildcard anymore. He was a rising king. Chapter 24. The war begins. Rizvam struck first. His forces launched a surprise attack on Naruto's growing clan, aiming to crush it before it could take root. Naruto met him head-on. The battle was legendary. Naruto's Rasenshuriken clashed against Rizvam's demonic magic, shaking the very fabric of reality. In the end, Naruto stood victorious, but the war was far from over. Chapter 25. A Future Forged in Fire. With his enemies growing bolder, Naruto realized that he had truly become a force of change. The factions feared him. The enemies hated him. The world itself was shifting around his presence. And at the heart of it all, Ophis remained by his side, her trust in him unwavering. Naruto looked ahead, knowing that the greatest battles were yet to come. He smirked. Let's shake up the world a little more. Chapter 26. The Shifting Alliances. The supernatural world was spiraling into chaos. Naruto, once seen as an unpredictable force, had now cemented himself as an undeniable threat. His declaration of independence had spurred other factions to take notice, and the subtle manipulations of leaders like Azazel and Searzex were starting to show cracks. The rise of the Uzumaki clan had disrupted the balance, and now, everyone had to reassess their positions. Naruto's influence spread like wildfire. Devils, angels, and fallen angels alike came to him, seeking either his alliance or to challenge him outright. He was no longer simply a bystander in their political games. He had become a central player. But Naruto wasn't interested in alliances. He trusted only one person, Ophis. Ophis stood by him, her presence calm and unwavering, a silent strength beside him. She was his anchor in a world that constantly shifted beneath their feet. Do you ever tire of all this? Naruto asked her one evening, looking out over the sprawling cityscape of Kuo. Ophis's gaze was distant, contemplative. No, I exist to see the world change, and you will change it. With me, with us. Naruto smiled softly. Then let's see it through. We'll carve our own path. Chapter 27. The Secret of the Dragon. Rumors spread through the factions about Ophis's true identity. Whispers began to circulate about the infinite dragon god and her connection to Naruto. The question on everyone's mind was clear. How did a human, a mortal from another world, manage to bind such a powerful being to his side? In the midst of this, Rias and her peerage began to grow closer to Naruto. Though they understood that he was unpredictable, they also realized he was someone who could be trusted when the chips were down. Still, Rias couldn't help but wonder what truly lay behind Naruto's indifference to the politics of the supernatural world. One night, Rias confronted him, her expression serious. Naruto, what exactly do you want out of all of this? Naruto raised an eyebrow, amused. I've told you already. I don't want anything but to live freely. Then why all this? Why fight? Why take down factions? Naruto leaned back against the wall, his gaze distant. Because I can. Because I have to. And Ophis. Rias pressed. Naruto's eyes softened, but his tone didn't waver. Ophis is my partner. I'll protect her, no matter what. Rias fell silent, understanding more than she let on. Ophis's role in his life was more than just a powerful ally. She was his equal, his true companion. And that was something that Naruto didn't need to explain further. Chapter 28. The Hunter's Challenge. Azazel, never one to sit idly by, saw Naruto's rise as a challenge to his own authority. He decided to test Naruto's power directly, sending one of the Grigori's strongest hunters to eliminate the rogue Uzumaki. The hunter, a tall, imposing figure, arrived in Kuo under the cover of darkness. His mission was clear: capture or kill Naruto and bring an end to the rising threat. Naruto, however, was more than prepared. He sensed the hunter's presence long before he arrived. As the hunter charged toward him, Rasengan in hand, Naruto's eyes glowed with a fiery intensity. You're in my way, Naruto muttered under his breath, summoning a massive chakra-infused Rasenshuriken. He hurled it at the hunter, who barely managed to dodge, but Naruto's precision was impeccable. The battle between the two was fast-paced, each attack more devastating than the last. You're stronger than I thought, the hunter remarked, trying to catch his breath. But you'll fall just like the rest of them. Naruto grinned. I don't fall that easily. In a final, brutal strike, Naruto overwhelmed the hunter with a combination of Rasengan and chakra-infused taijutsu. The Grigori agent lay unconscious, a clear message sent to Azazel and anyone else who dared to challenge him. Chapter 29. The Devil's Offer. After his victory over the Grigori hunter, Naruto's power and influence became even more apparent. The devils, recognizing that they couldn't afford to let him continue unchecked, extended a formal offer for him to join their ranks. Sirzex himself approached Naruto, sitting down with him in a quiet room within the Grigori mansion. I've been watching you, Naruto, Sirzex said with a half-smile. You're a force of nature. And frankly, I'd rather have you as an ally than an enemy. Naruto crossed his arms. I've got no interest in joining anyone. I'm not a devil, not an angel, and definitely not a fallen. I work alone. Sirzex chuckled. You misunderstand. I'm not asking you to be a devil. I'm offering you a chance to shape the future of the underworld. To have influence, power, and protection. Naruto stared at him, unmoving. I don't need protection. And as for shaping the future, there's only one future I'm interested in, and that's the one I make for myself. Sirzex's smile faded slightly, but he didn't press further. Very well. But remember, we're all just one step away from chaos. Naruto didn't flinch. Chaos is what I do best. Chapter 30. The Rising Storm. With the threat of the Grigori dealt with and the Devil's Offer rejected, Naruto's next challenge came in the form of a new alliance between the Fallen Angels and Chaos Brigade. Rizvam, ever the manipulator, had struck a deal with the Fallen Angels, consolidating their forces and making them a significant threat to the world's stability. The news of their alliance sent shockwaves through the supernatural community. With Rizvim's cunning and the fallen angel's brutal tactics, the combined force was enough to make even the strongest factions wary. Naruto, however, wasn't concerned. Let them come, he muttered as he stood with Ophis by his side. This will be fun. But the situation wasn't as simple as it seemed. The Chaos Brigade's numbers were vast, and their goals aligned with destabilizing the power balance of all factions. They weren't just attacking Naruto, they were attacking everything he stood for. Rias and her peerage stood with him as the final battle loomed. We'll fight together, she said, her voice determined. Naruto smiled. Good. Let's show them what happens when they mess with us. Chapter 31. A Storm of Shadows. The fallen angels, along with Chaos Brigade operatives, launched an all-out assault on Kuo. The battle was fierce, with shadows and light clashing in a chaotic frenzy. Naruto fought like a force of nature, unleashing devastating Rasengans and chakra-enhanced taijutsu. Ophis, her power as the infinite dragon god unleashed, reduced whole squads of enemies to nothing more than vapor. But Rizvim was nowhere to be seen. The real battle was waiting for them. Where is he? Rias asked, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Naruto grinned. I knew he wouldn't just attack head-on. He's playing some game. And then, they felt it. A surge of power unlike anything they'd encountered before. Rizvim had arrived. Chapter 32. The Dark Heart of the Chaos Brigade. Rizvim revealed himself, standing at the center of a massive magic circle. His laugh echoed through the battlefield as he summoned an army of monsters to fight Naruto and the others. Is that the best you've got? Naruto called out, unfazed. He gathered his chakra, preparing to strike. Rizvim's eyes gleamed. This is just the beginning, Uzumaki. You've made the mistake of thinking you can just waltz through life. Now, you'll see the true power of the Chaos Brigade. Naruto and Ophis took the front lines, obliterating Rizvim's army with ruthless precision. But it was clear that Rizvim wasn't finished yet. Naruto's grin grew wider. Then let's see what you've got, Rizvim. Chapter 33. The Final Showdown. The final battle between Naruto and Rizvim was nothing short of legendary. Rasengans collided with demonic magic, and Naruto's chakra-infused punches sent shockwaves through the air. But Rizvim wasn't just powerful, he was cunning, manipulating the battlefield with traps and illusions. You're nothing but a pawn in a larger game, Rizvim taunted. You've already lost. Naruto's eyes narrowed. No, I've won the moment I set foot in this world. In a final burst of power, Naruto unleashed his most devastating attack yet, an enhanced Rasenshuriken, infused with the full extent of his chakra and Ophis's power. The explosion shook the very fabric of reality itself, sending Rizvim crashing to the ground, defeated. With the battle won, Naruto stood over his fallen foe. Don't ever come after me again. Chapter 34. Aftermath. The battle's aftermath left the supernatural world reeling. The Chaos Brigade had been decimated, and the fallen angels were in disarray. The balance had shifted once again, and this time, there was no turning back. Naruto, now more than ever, was a force to be reckoned with. He had proven himself against the most powerful factions in the world. Ophis, standing by his side, spoke softly. The world is ours now. Chapter 35. A New Era. The dust settled after the war. The Chaos Brigade had been shattered, and the fallen angels, disoriented by their defeat, had withdrawn. The underworld, heaven, and even the Grigori were left to lick their wounds. For Naruto and Ophis, however, the battle was over, not just for survival, but for a future of their own making. Naruto stood on the highest tower in Kuo, looking out over the city below. His chest rose and fell with each breath, but there was a calmness about him now, an understanding that the world had changed. He had done it. Against all odds, he had risen to the top, carving a path through the chaos. The Uzumaki clan was now a legitimate power, and the supernatural world was still coming to terms with the fact that a rogue from another universe had reshaped everything. Ophis joined him at the edge, her usual silent presence comforting. She had been with him through it all, his triumphs, his battles, and even his moments of doubt. Together, they had become more than just two powerful beings. They had become an unbreakable force, an undeniable truth. We did it, Ophis said, her voice soft but firm, a rare trace of emotion breaking through her usual calm. Naruto smiled, a genuine, content smile. Yeah, we did. I guess this is what freedom looks like. Ophis leaned against him, her hand finding his. There was no need for words. The bond they shared was enough. The world would continue to turn, factions would still clash, but Naruto and Ophis had carved out a place for themselves. A place where they could be free from the constraints of others. Rias and her peerage had remained by their side, offering help when needed but never trying to control Naruto. They had come to understand that he would never be someone who would bend to anyone's will. He would live on his own terms, with the people he chose, and no one would dictate his path. But there was still work to be done. The power vacuum left by Rizvim's defeat had left a hole in the supernatural world that others were eager to fill. While Naruto and Ophis had defeated their most immediate threats, there were still many forces that would test their resolve. Do you think the peace will last? Rias had asked earlier, her gaze troubled. Naruto had looked her in the eye and shrugged. Does it matter? I don't need peace. I need to be strong. Ophis and I will face whatever comes. That was the truth. The future would always hold challenges, but Naruto and Ophis were ready to face them together, stronger than ever. They had shaped their own destiny, and nothing could take that away. The world had been changed, reshaped by the actions of a single, indomitable man, and his companion, the infinite dragon god. Let's go, Ophis, Naruto said, his voice filled with determination. The world is waiting for us. And with that, the two of them walked away from the tower, stepping into a new era. They didn't need anyone's approval. They were the creators of their own future. And no one, not even the strongest factions, could stand in their way. The world had been warned. Naruto Uzumaki, the wild card, had arrived, and the supernatural world would never be the same. The end. This wraps up the story with Naruto and Ophis standing at the pinnacle of the supernatural world, having fought, conquered, and reshaped the future in their image.